Welcome to SME Insights at the SME Mission Critical Workforce 2030 exhibit at the Manufacturing Technology Series East. I'm Greg Jones. I'm Strategic Programs and Partnerships Director with SME. And today, my guest on SME Insights is Paul Lavoie, the Chief Manufacturing Officer with the State of Connecticut. Paul, welcome to SME Insights.
Thanks, Greg. It's great to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. It's kind of unique that a state has a chief manufacturing officer. I think that's a great thing for the industry. Can you tell us about how long ago the state of Connecticut formed a office of chief manufacturing and how long you've been in that position?
Sure, absolutely. So a little bit of history here as to what makes Connecticut unique as it relates to manufacturing. So in 2012, Connecticut was the first state to establish a bipartisan manufacturing caucus. Both sides of the aisle came together and wanted to really support the manufacturing sector. And when you consider there's 4,800 manufacturers in our 5,445 square miles, if you swing a wiffle ball bat, invented and made in Connecticut, you're going to hit one of them. So it was great to have that caucus. In 2015, the legislature created the Manufacturing Innovation Fund. And the Manufacturing Innovation Fund is designed to support the manufacturing sector. And then in 2017, all of the manufacturing associations got together and created the Connecticut Manufacturing Collaborative. And the Connecticut Manufacturing Collaborative lobbied the legislature and the governor to create a chief manufacturing officer position. So in 2019, the governor created the chief manufacturing officer position in the state of Connecticut. First chief manufacturing officer was Colin Cooper. Colin had just sold his manufacturing business and gave the governor a 2-year commitment. And I was appointed in February of 2022 to be Connecticut's second chief manufacturing officer.
Good. So 3 years on the job about?
A little over 3 years, yeah.
How's it going so far? What are some of the 4 key things that you focus on there?
Yeah, it's going very, very well. Over the last 3 years, Connecticut's manufacturing sector has grown by $3 billion. We've gone from 10% of the state's GDP to 12.9% of the state's GDP, and that growth in manufacturing has made Connecticut the 17th fastest growing economy in the US. So things are going really, really well in the manufacturing sector. We have a strategic plan in Connecticut, and so my team authors Connecticut's manufacturing strategic plan. It's going to be version 3.0 is going to be released in 2 days at the state capitol with a press conference, but it's based on 4 components. And those components are developing talent, building sustainable companies, driving innovation, and improving collaboration. So it really is those 4 things, and then we look at strategic initiatives within each one of those 4 areas to help support and grow the manufacturing sector. My customers are the 4,800 manufacturers in the state of Connecticut, and my job is to listen to them and then to build systems and programs that are going to help solve their most pressing problems. And we know their most pressing problems are lack of an available skilled workforce, fragile supply chains, and the need to drive innovation to keep their businesses relevant and growing.
Yeah, that's great. Are you working with schools too? Is there a program in the state of Connecticut where you're specifically trying to match educational institutions with the manufacturers in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. We do that really well from what K through 12. We take a look at doing that. We've got some programs that are specifically, excuse me, I shouldn't say K through 12, I should say K through graduate schools, right? Yeah. I mean, well, and even K through gray is right, yeah, K through gray. K through 12 is a component of that. But yeah, we're working, one of my key initiatives is to strengthen the relationship between academia and industry. Just yesterday morning, I kicked off my Monday morning with a roundtable discussion at the University of Hartford with the president of the University of Hartford and the dean to bring in industry folks. So we brought in about 6 or 7 companies, and they brought in industry leaders to understand what the capacity and capabilities are of the University of Hartford, for example, and then for the industry to really be able to say this is what we need. Tomorrow I'm doing a roundtable at the University of Connecticut. I was at Quinnipiac University just last week, and so I also serve as the vice chair of our technical high school system, so we're very much ingrained in that as well. And then we run several programs through our partner ReadyCT on the K through 12 process, K through 12 education space as well.
Yeah, super, that's great. ReadyCT, most states should, come up with a program like that.
Yeah.
Because it really helps to start the students younger, thinking about having awareness about careers in manufacturing. Here at this event, we're doing what we call a Bright Mind Student Summit.
Yep.
So giving
Yeah.
schools in the area the ability to come in, see this trade show, see the technology, experience it, get their hands on, and just create that awareness and desire to work in the manufacturing industry.
Yeah, Ready CT is a great partner of the Office of Manufacturing. They were created to provide opportunities in the K through 12 space, but they really focus on what we call alliance districts, which are underserved districts. We fund them. We funded a $2.5 million two-year program to fund FIRST Robotics statewide. So we now have funding to level the playing field for every program in FIRST Robotics. And the results that we're getting are pretty amazing. We sent 7 teams, Greg, to nationals from Connecticut.
Very nice.
4 of those teams were from alliance districts, which are underserved districts. 2 of those teams, if they didn't get funding from the state of Connecticut, would have been defunct. So we took 2 teams that would have not participated at all, they're state champions, and one of the teams was a rookie team. It was the first time they'd ever participated.
Oh, that's great.
And actually the governor's going to do is releasing a press release today on those results, because it just shows you that these underserved communities have this latent talent that we haven't tapped into in the manufacturing sector. And when you give them an equal opportunity to perform at the same level with other people, they shine, and that's important. And then much like your program, we do career roadshows across the state. We do 5 of them. We're doing one at the Capitol on Thursday. That career roadshow is all designed around bringing kids in and introducing them to manufacturing and manufacturing careers. We spent an entire generation of telling kids they shouldn't go to work in the trades and they shouldn't go to work in manufacturing. And we really need to undo that. And so we're really working hard to let kids know that there's an opportunity and there's a pathway for them, right? It's not one path fits all. There's pathways.
The data says that a 4-year college degree doesn't fit for everyone, and as a country, we're leaning in that direction, and the evidence says that not all those students graduate and finish college.
The evidence that they don't graduate is quite staggering when you look at it. And listen, just because you go into a career out of high school or you go to a 2-year program doesn't mean you're not going to go back to college.
Right.
I went to a 2-year program, got an associate's degree, went to work, and then I had a boss who told me that if you ever want to go anywhere, Paul, you got to get a 4-year degree. So I went back and got a 4-year degree at night. I mean, if I could do it, and I'm sitting here as chief manufacturing officer, everybody else out there. So education is important.
Right.
It's just, what's your pathway? And I had to do that because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford a 4-year education. I was paying for it myself, and so I needed to work. And that was just my pathway, and that's just the way it worked. But I think that's the message for every kid out there, is that find your pathway. And that pathway at some point is always going to include education.
Absolutely, and we still do need engineers, and they do need a 4-year degree, so that's important. In that FIRST Robotics program and VEX with the REC Foundation, they're great places for students to begin, even in elementary school, middle school, high school, to learn about robotics, get excited. The interesting thing about those teams is that it's not just builders and engineers and those types of folks, but they're team members that are assigned marketing and sponsorships and other things, so they're learning business skills as well, and that's what I like about FIRST.
Yeah, and we also, by the way, I'm glad you brought up VEX, because we also provide funding for VEX too. So it really is a robotics program. It started with FIRST, and then we brought VEX into the fold. But I'll tell you, you're talking about how the teams are there. A little story about that. I was at an event, and a kid sat down next to me, and he looks at me and he goes, "Sir, do you mind if I use my phone?" And I looked at him like, "You're asking me to use your phone? I like this kid already." And so he's like watching the competition, and he's feverishly taking notes. And I said, "What's your role on the team?" He goes, "Oh, I'm the chief strategist." He goes, "I watch and see how other teams are playing the game, and then I come back and I set the strategy for how our team is going to play." This is a high school kid. I looked at him, I go, "Do you want a job? Like, can I hire you right now?" You know? But to your point, there's a role in these robotics programs, not just for the builders and the drivers, but for the whole team. And you're right, it's their sport. And I tell you, I had a vision, Greg, and that vision came true. I was at Hartford Public High School, and I looked up, and hanging from the rafters next to all the sports championship banners was a first robotics championship banner.
There you go.
And I said, when we start hanging banners up in school gyms for these kids and putting them on the same par with athletic things, then I know we're doing something, because these kids are finding their sport.
Yeah, and just like that, we're doing signing days for students coming into skilled trades and those sorts of things. So I agree with you. It really matters that we put it on the same level as we...
And we normalize it for them. We say, listen, going into a career just means you're choosing a different path. It's not better or worse, it's just a different path. And we've got to put it all on a level playing field for these kids. They can't feel less than.
Sure.
In any way, shape, or form, for whatever pathway they choose. Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit on some of the pathways. Some of the graphics in the SME Mission Critical Workforce 2030 exhibit are focused on the defense industry.
Yeah.
That's intentional. There's a lot of growth going on. There's a lot of need for new workers to build submarines and do other things. Can you talk about, maybe people don't think of Connecticut as a manufacturing state involved in defense, but it actually really is, because you're on the coast.
Well,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. What most people don't know is we're #1 in the country in aircraft engine and airplane parts manufacturing, and we're #2 in the USA in Connecticut in shipbuilding. And we're #4 in Department of Defense program spending. So California, Texas, Virginia, Connecticut, #4. And again, we're the 48th largest state, so we're just little tiny states sitting on the East Coast, but we punch well above our weight class when it comes to defense manufacturing. Senator Richard Blumenthal likes to call us the arsenal of democracy, as we make the engine for the F-135 fighter, we make nuclear submarines, we make helicopters, all in Connecticut. And it's critically important, and so we support the defense industry in a couple of different ways. We have the Connecticut Defense Manufacturing Community Collaborative, which is a group of all defense manufacturers that work together to talk about how we can strengthen that. And what we're doing is we've gotten federal grants, and we're doing work around the digital transformation, so digital twins, model-based definition, model-based systems engineering. We do that with our partner, the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology. We're working on additive manufacturing and the adoption and acceleration of additive manufacturing within the defense sector, because that's becoming really important. Right. And then what we have to come to grips with, workforce development and talent development is critically important, and we need to make sure that we're doing that. But we also have to come to grips with the fact that we're never going to have enough people to get the work done that we need to get done. We've all seen the studies. National Association of Manufacturers talks about 2 million job deficits in 2030. And so Connecticut has a plan to full employment in the manufacturing sector, and that really focuses a lot on robotics and automation and AI and Internet of Things, and really getting machines to do the work for people that we're never going to have. Not a job replacement strategy, not a job elimination strategy. It's everybody that I see that adopts innovation and automation upskills and reskills their workforce into better paying jobs. So, so it's critical that we take the workforce development and the innovation pieces, and then we work on them together, because that's how we're going to solve the problem. Right. Either one of them isn't going to solve the problem on its own. And so in Connecticut, especially in the defense sector, we're laser focused on that. I mean, I walk around the state saying, when it comes to shipbuilding, it's a real simple formula. It's 1 + 2 + AUKUS. Right, we need 1 Columbia-class submarine, 2 Virginia, and we need to build submarines for the Australians. And 50% of the Virginia-class submarines are shipped out of Connecticut, the other out of Virginia, 100% of the Columbia-class. So it's existential to Connecticut's economy's health to make sure that we have a robust shipbuilding industry and a defense industry. So we spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah. Sounds like you're a busy guy.
Absolutely, I am, and it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's great to be busy.
Well, thanks for joining us here on SME Insights today. It's been great to have you. And
thanks, Greg. It's really great to be here.
Connecticut,
well, and you keep up doing the work you guys are doing to support the manufacturing sector. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.